Hi, this is Chris Pickering here, and you're listening to Retrospectives with John Broughton on KC Radio 97.7 FM.
Queenslander by birth. As a young lad up there in Queensland, was there a particular moment you can pinpoint where music really started to get a hold of you?
Yeah, probably when I was a little guy, like probably about five, I guess, maybe 5 or 6. We had a little cassette player, one of those, little, basically transistor cassette player radio thing with one speaker, and my parents we didn't have a record player, but they had a record collection, so they copied all of their records onto cassettes. And along with the kids' cassettes, like, the chimes, turn the page, ding, 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 kind of things that we used to read, my parents had all these cassettes of their records, which were, stuff they'd grown up with, like the Beatles and the Animals, the Rolling Stones, and a bunch of stuff. Well, basically, 1960s music. And so I kind of discovered them by listening when they'd have that music on. I gradually, my ear, tuned into that, and I started to listen to their cassettes over and over again. And that was really when I first kind of noticed and took a real liking, I think, to music. And shortly after that, we had a VHS copy, I think, of a Beatles documentary as well. And whenever we used to rent a VHS player from the video store because we didn't have one. So you get one for a couple of weeks, and then that Beatles tape would get played over and over again because it featured a lot of performances. And so shortly after that, I started to pick up the guitar, and then the drums followed that, and then essentially any kind of instrument I could get my hands on, I was pretty keen to learn.
You found yourself behind the drums in a band, the Boat People, whose music was probably not linked closely to the music you ended up making as a solo artist. How do you look back on that time now?
Oh, it was great. I mean, the guys in the Boat People, we're still good friends. There's no animosity or anything like that. It was that we all grew up together. So we actually ended up we were all in a band in high school, and I ended up being the drummer because I was the best drummer out of the 4 of us. That's the only reason. I played guitar as much as I played drums back then, but Charlie was a better guitar player than me, so he ended up on guitar. I ended up on drums. James ended up on bass because he was a better bass player and we needed a bass player. And then Rob played the keys, and so it just kind of evolved organically. And we just had a good time. We were the 4 people the most interested in music in our school community. So we just ended up being in a band, and then we all decided to study music when we finished school. So we ended up at the Queensland Conservatorium together, and then when that finished, we just decided to make a go of it as a band, and it really just went from there.
Do you recall being keen to get out from behind the drums and focus on guitar and songwriting?
Yeah, that was the big, the big culminative factor, I think, is that, I enjoyed the music that we were making as a band, but I did feel a bit stifled as a songwriter. There were 3 main songwriters in the group, and we all kind of contributed equally, really, but I did feel like I wasn't having as much influence as a songwriter from behind the kit. I wasn't able to really, melodically or in a rhythm guitar sort of sense, influence the way the music was going, and was playing more guitar to write songs anyway. I wasn't really using the drum kit to write the songs. I was using guitar or piano. So it just felt more natural for me to want to play guitar more. And the music I was writing was definitely more of a country acoustic, sort of thing. And it felt like it was probably time for me to move on from the band in order to really be able to make the music I wanted to make. So yeah, that's what really ended up happening. Everybody understood, and it was fine. And they went on to make some great music. They got a new drummer in, went on to make some great music, and then I just went solo after that.
So once you went solo, did it take time for you to develop a self-confidence in your songwriting?
Yeah, it did actually. Well, no, actually, less so in the songwriting. I always I think I always. Let me do that again. That was annoying. Less so in the songwriting, because I I kind of knew that just based on feedback and songs that I'd done with the Boat People, they were always pretty well received. So I kind of knew that I had something happening with the songwriting. So, I was probably a little bit egotistical about it, I guess, now I think in retrospective. But I definitely thought that songwriting was something that I was doing well. But the solo performing or even performing as a front person with the band was definitely not something I was used to. So I really did go through quite a training phase, I guess, of really developing confidence in that area, doing as many gigs as I could. And we actually, at the time, it was really great because in Brisbane, which was where I lived, so this would have been 2004-ish, 2005-ish, there was a venue called the Troubadour, which was it's now the Black Bear Lodge, I think it's called, in Fortitude Valley. And the Troubadour was sort of like, a bit of an acoustic songwriters venue. It wasn't very big. It only could fit, 150 people all slammed together. So it was quite small. And it was in the Fortitude Valley Mall, kind of at the top of a staircase. And they used to run Tuesday songwriter nights. And so this would be the night that all of us songwriters in Brisbane, that could play solo and play our songs, would get out and play and do all that stuff. And so there was a number of great writers around then that I was really good friends with, like Jackie Marshall and Luke Foran and Ben Salter, and there was a real scene developing of just songwriters playing guitars, playing, whatever instrument really, but with a little bit more of a country kind of influence, because country had kind of become cool at that point. It went through a bit of a phase in the 90s with Garth Brooks and Shania Twain that it wasn't really, and grunge was sort of a big thing in the 90s too. So anything that was country wasn't seen to be quite cool, but it kind of had a bit of a revival in the 2000s, which was great for all those of us who love to listen to country music and had done a lot of it. It was good that kind of came around again. But yeah, so anyway, I'm telling a long story, but
No, sir.
Ultimately that little scene that developed was really, we all boosted each other's confidence. In a lot of cases, there was so many of us trying to do that same thing that we all encouraged each other and developed a lot of confidence around that time. So it was good.
Did you eventually hone in on a particular songwriting procedure, or has that always been something that's varied from song to song?
No, it does vary from song to song. I think you probably eventually settle into whatever's working for that particular song. You just settle into a groove with the process. But usually it's pretty organic. Like sometimes I'll have an idea for a song, like I really want to write about that. That would be a really cool thing to write a song about, and then so that'll just kind of percolate around for a while, and then I'll eventually maybe come up with a title, and then some kind of rhythmic idea on the guitar or a melodic idea that I've been mucking around with will, start to coalesce together and form something. But then sometimes I'll just have a melodic or rhythmic idea or a structure that has no lyrics that's just sitting there for ages, and then the lyrics will come, and I kind of put those together. But usually I am one that, because I probably have a little bit more of a melodic sensibility, I think initially with songwriting, that the melody usually comes before the lyrics start to fit it. I just find that a little bit easier than trying to squeeze lyrics into a particular melodic phrase. I'll have the melodic phrase and then find the way I want to use the lyrics to fit into that.
Have you been a project-to-project writer through the years, or do you have songs that could sit for a while and be works in progress before you eventually commit them to record?
Yeah, it's definitely the latter one. I'll often have ideas that just kind of sit there for a while, and I'm not always good at coming back to ideas. Actually, like I do kind of record little ideas and keep them set aside for when they might eventually become of use. But usually it's kind of a fairly finished idea, but it can sit there for a while. I've had songs sitting around for years, and then finally that lyric comes up and you go, that's it. That's what I've been waiting for. And it comes together. So it just depends. But then I also do specifically try and write things, in a very workman or work person like kind of way to, to fit a certain project or a certain album, I'll be like, this album would be great with a song like this, so you try and write something like that. Yeah.
Mm. What
Mm.
about the editing process? Is that pretty heavy for you, or is there a specific point in time where the process is over, the song is finished?
No, the editing is ongoing. Even after I've recorded it, I often
Oh,
think, you know, maybe I could have done that. So that's actually probably part of the reason I don't listen to once I've finished a song and it's been recorded and mixed and mastered and ready to go out there. I don't listen to them very often after that. Because I sort of learnt early on that you're constantly picking things apart. You go, oh, that guitar sound, I could have taken the high EQ down a little bit on that acoustic guitar or whatever. You're just constantly picking on it. So I don't I don't tend to listen to them and just let it go. But I think that's the healthy way to look at it, because you never really think, something creative. You can just keep changing it and moving it around and doing it, on and on and on forever and ever and ever. It doesn't
For
really matter.
sure.
Yeah.
Look back on your time in Nashville, the time you spent over there. Looking back on that now, what would be for you the main benefit you took out of that experience in terms of your development as a musician and songwriter?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know that I changed my songwriting style very much actually while I was over there, or my process. What I went over there to kind of to really make a go of the songwriting. Everybody kept saying to me, industry wise, people from publishing companies or whatever, they always saying, "Oh, your songwriting's really great. This is the real thing that sets you apart from other writers. You've got a quite a unique sound and a unique voice and that kind of thing." This idea that I should maybe go to Nashville and make a go of it over there had kept coming up and as advice from people in the industry for a while. And so eventually, me and my management team, we just decided to do that and to take a punt and go over there and try and sort of write songs for people. And it wasn't really a focus of develop what I do. That was sort of, me as an artist wasn't the important thing. It was more about just developing as a songwriter and maybe, getting some income from having other people perform my songs. But once I got into that system and started doing co-writing, which is the big thing over there, you basically get paired with another writer. Sometimes it's an organic relationship. You meet and you're like, we should write songs together. Great. But otherwise, sometimes, a publishing company will put you together and just to see what might happen and see if, and this is kind of the process. Artists are always looking to co-write and other songwriters are looking to co-write, because you just never know what might work and what might happen. And so I did a bunch of that, and it just sort of, I just never really felt like I was writing the kind of songs that I wanted to write. Ultimately, a lot of the co-writing sessions were great, but and I really enjoyed them, but it didn't. I didn't feel like the songs I wanted to write really resonated with that community, and I had a lot of great ideas that I took to songwriting sessions that just got turned inside out and made to not resemble what they were. And
Mm.
I sort of felt like, oh, that's a real shame, because I thought that idea was really good and I would have used that in one of my songs, but now I can't because it's part of another song. So I did that for, probably a good year or something, 18 months while I was there, and then just kind of drifted away from it because I wasn't really enjoying it, and I was enjoying being a part of the scene that was developing in East Nashville with a whole bunch of other great artists. Like who was in that scene? Like Kelsey Walden, Derek Hoke, Margot Price. There was a whole bunch of great songwriters that we all used to hang out together and play music and talk about songwriting and each other's songs, co-write together, whatever it might have been. And there was a few great venues around East Nashville too that we all played at, and we all lived there. We all lived in that scene, in that area. So I just really enjoyed that, and so it just made more sense for me to kind of just actually write songs for myself and play gigs and then try and tour. And so that's what I ended up doing. I would base myself in Nashville and then just do these very, I guess, very budget kind of touring. I'd drive around and just play all of these little cafe venues, bar venues all over the Mid-South and the South and the Midwest, and, getting up as far as New York, sometimes doing the West Coast, just, very basic kind of stuff, just to get my songs out there, make a living. And it was a great experience. I really, really enjoyed it. But America's a fantastic, very diverse country. It was really amazing to have that opportunity as an artist to explore it, I think.
So outside of Nashville, were there any other particular areas, any other pockets where there was significant interest in your work?
Well, I think everywhere I went, I mean, sometimes you're playing to two people, and sometimes you're playing to 100. It sort of depends on the place. And where you go. I did develop a little bit of a crowd or a regular kind of attendance, a few of the places I kept going back to. But I don't know. I don't know that there was any one place that I would say, I mean, Nashville was where I played most of the time, and Memphis as well. I played a lot in Memphis too. So they were the two places that I sort of probably had I guess I was probably the most well-known, or had a reasonable profile in those places. But outside of that, I probably, I didn't really probably go back to as many places enough as I could have to really sort of make much of an impact, I think.
Mm. You did get to record over there a couple of albums, including recording at the legendary Ardent Studios in Memphis with the Work of Fiction album. Any standout memories of those sessions?
Yeah, I mean, those sessions were great. It's a really, I was actually thinking the other day, someone came up to me at a gig the other week, actually, and said how much they loved that record, which actually doesn't happen that often. It's one of the records that, just for whatever reason, a lot of people, I don't know, it just kind of got a bit glossed over. It did a little bit while it was around, but not a lot of people talk about it. But so that was really nice that someone said, "Oh, I really, really love that record. It was great." So I was thinking of, maybe I should listen to that again. But the experience of making it was fantastic. I worked with a producer, a guy called Don Nix, who's kind of a bit of a legend in Memphis. He was he was a saxophone player with the Marquees. That was a band that was signed to Stax Records all the way back in the 1960s. And they had a reasonable hit with a tune called Last Night that was kind of just this instrumental number, but it turns up on Stax compilations all the time. So he was part of that scene as a bit of a saxophone player / multi-instrumentalist kind of, person that just kind of hung around and was involved with the label and the studio, and then eventually developed into a songwriter by the end of the 1960s, and was working as a solo artist at that point, and put out a few records on Stax or Stax subsidiaries. I think it might have been Enterprise or one of the other labels that Stax was associated with, and had a band called the Alabama State Troopers and things like that in the 1970s. And did a whole bunch of stuff. But anyway, he's kind of, he'd always been hanging about in Memphis and had a pretty good reputation, and a few people had suggested he might be a good person to work with. And so he ended up producing it, and because he's been a long-term Memphis musician, he had heaps of contacts. So he actually basically was able to pull together a really, I'm very lucky to have had that experience, a really great band, featuring David Hood, who was the bass player in the band, and he was one of the Muscle Shoals Swampers. He was the bass player on a lot of those records. So he played bass on it. Joel Williams is a great drummer from around Memphis. Greg Redding as well, who became a really close friend, actually. I still talk to Greg reasonably regularly. And Greg Redding would played in quite a lot of great bands from around Memphis, and was a supporting musician in a number of acts. There's a band that was called Black Oak, Arkansas, that he played in for a while, which was a pretty cheesy 70s rock band, and then he also played in a great Memphis group called the Hot Dogs as well, and a few other things. And who else? Kelvin Holly also played in that band too, and Robert Claiborne. It was just a really, really great experience to play with such great musicians, and it was really, really amazing. Kelvin played in a or plays in a few different groups, but also with the I want to say Average White Band, but it's not Average White Band. It's a name like that. You would know it if I said it. It'll come to me anyway. But he also played with Little Richard. He was Little Richard's guitar player, and so I don't know what was more fun, actually, the recording or just hearing all the stories that all of these people had all the time, because there was so many. They just kept going. Don had a bunch. They all had a bunch of stories, and they were, at the time in their careers where they were just more than happy to talk about them all the time. But it was great. I mean, it was just fantastic being in the room with those guys, and in particular feeling like, I mean, looking back on it now, it was a real validation process, because these were the real deal musos, and they really liked playing my music. They really liked the songs. They kept saying to me, "These are great songs, man. These are really good. You've done really well, to put these together, and these sessions have been really fun." So, if anything, that was the real highlight. Besides, bringing those songs to life was great, but being able to do it in that way and feel validated that you were on the right kind of path musically and artistically, regardless of how well. I never really, during the making of a record, I never really think, oh, this one's got to be the one. I've got to have some success with this. It's always about how can we just make the music good. I've never really felt like, making commercial music for the sake of it being successful. I just want to make the music that I think sounds good. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it was a fantastic experience. It was really great.
Now, Canyons is still your most recent album. I thought it was a wonderful piece of work. Tell us about putting that one together. Did you have high hopes for that?
Yeah. No, not necessarily. I wouldn't say I had high hopes. I'm probably a natural pessimist, actually, when it comes to that kind of thing. But it was just that was a pretty organic thing that came together over a few sessions. Some of it was recorded in Nashville, and then some of it I went out to Joshua Tree with a friend, an engineer friend. Like I was saying earlier, I'm not much of an audio engineer, so the way I work, I prefer to collaborate with an engineer / producer, so I don't need to worry about all of the technical stuff. Otherwise, I know that I would get bogged down in putting mics in certain places and getting things. I prefer to work very quickly. So having someone on board that understands that really helps that process. So we went to a studio in Joshua Tree. It was I'm not even sure it's there anymore. It was called Hicksville, and we recorded 6 songs out there, and most of those made it on the record, I think, and then some of the other songs were culled from, or not culled, but brought in from other sessions that I'd done in Nashville too, and made a record out of it. But I was just thinking the other day, there's maybe 3 or 4 songs from that time that I never ended up being released, but they got mixed and everything, so I should probably put them out at some point. I don't know if I'll ever do that, but probably. We'll see.
Have you ever pondered how different those albums would have been if you'd stayed here in Australia and recorded them here?
Yeah, well, they probably wouldn't have happened, to be honest. The songs wouldn't have been the same, because a lot of the songs, particularly the work of fiction stuff, I wrote most of those songs while I was in the States, and the same with Canyon. So almost all of those were written while I was over there. So some of them might have been done a little bit while I was back here from time to time, but yeah, they would have been totally different, I think. And the songs probably wouldn't have existed, I think, at least in the same way. So yeah, I mean, that's what a record is, isn't it? It's just it's basically a summary. It's a moment in time. It's a summary of what you've been working on and for however long that time period is, or maybe it's not even that. It's just like, some friends get together for a month and make a record, and that's it. And you're not able to repeat that. If it had been a month later or a month earlier, it would have sounded totally different. It's just, that's what it is.
So true. Was there any particular catalyst in prompting you to return back to Australia?
Yeah, I was a bit homesick, because there was a few things that I was sort of like, just quite conscious that I missed. Family, I missed a lot. My mum was quite unwell, so I just sort of thought, oh, this probably isn't a great time to be so far away from home. It'd be good to be back and be a bit closer to home. and also I'd kind of been I've been rolling the dice in America for a long time as far as my health and well-being went, because I was quite I was definitely on the other side of the poverty line, being a self funded musician. I was living pretty hand to mouth, and so things like health insurance and stuff like that I was kind of just tried not to think about a lot of the time. But they eventually, a few things happened to friends of mine where I realized that, if I was out on tour and I had a car accident and I don't have health insurance, I'm in real trouble. Especially if it's a serious injury. I would have no way of paying for those kind of exorbitant fees that the health system commands in the United States. And so it just felt like, I've had a pretty good run. Maybe I shouldn't I shouldn't really push it any more than I have been. And so, yeah, it was just a combination of things. I loved it over there, and I felt like I could have stayed. But also, it also did feel like that East Nashville was changing a little bit, and it just sort of, it's one of those things you just sort of think, I reckon it's time. I reckon it's been good, and I've loved it, and I've had a really great time. But it's time to do something else now, and come back to Australia. And I knew when I came back that I didn't really want to be in Brisbane. I'd lived there for 10 years since I left home and went to uni, and then was playing music. So coming down to Melbourne just seemed like an obvious thing, because I had some family here already, and also some very good friends. So it just seemed like a good place to restart things. Yeah.
So it's coming up to 7 years now since Canyons was released. So I guess it's safe to say recording and releasing music isn't as high in the pecking order of importance for you as it once was?
No, no, it's not. But there's a few reasons. There's two big ones. One of which is 6 years old, and the other one is 4 years old. So I've got two little kids, and for anyone that has kids, you'll understand that everything
Changes everything.
It changes everything. It takes a bit of a backseat. So that's been a pretty big factor in that, and I think. They haven't really stopped this desire to make music at all. It just really limits your time and what you can do. So it's not like I definitely have slowed down in the songwriting, but I've also been writing a whole bunch of music because I've been studying. I've been studying composition as part of a postgraduate kind of thing. So I've been writing a whole bunch of what you'd probably call art music or contemporary classical art music. Stuff like piano trios, string quartets, orchestral music, things like that as part of that degree and that postgraduate degree, which is kind of tied into my day job as a teacher as well. So I have been writing a lot of music, and I still have a band. We still play, but we just do laid back kind of relaxed gigs every so often, rather than really we're not trying to push it anymore. We're not trying to get the big break or get extensive radio airplay. All of that stuff is just a bit stressful. I don't really want to do that anymore. It's much more fun just to play music and really enjoy it and write songs that you don't need to, you're not thinking about, oh, do I need to have the chorus do this or that? You can just write music for the sake of it.
For yourself, yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at, and it's nice to be able to just enjoy music and write it and enjoy your family and all of those things and be happy. I like it.
So you did recently premiere some of that work with the piano trio. Tell us about that. Is there more of that in the works?
Yeah, well, that was, as I said, like I'm doing it's postgraduate study. So, as part of that, we've got to perform and record these pieces. So the recording turned out pretty well, actually. So I'll see about maybe even, putting some of that out or seeing what happens with that. But it's great to be still able to explore music in that kind of world, and again be able to write. I've always listened to all kinds of music and always been quite fascinated with writing for different instruments and how you do that. So the outlet in composition has been really good. I've really enjoyed it. So yeah, there's definitely going to be more of that to come. I've got a commission to write some music for the Percy Granger Youth Orchestra later this year, so there'll be a performance for that. And, no doubt there'll be more here and there too. So, yeah, it's been really good. And it's a great, I can still play with the band and do that. and then have this other music out there as well. It's really cool.
Yeah. And what about your work at the JMC Academy? Tell us what that involves.
So I'm head of music there, which is mostly admin these days. It's timetabling and teachers and student management and all of that kind of stuff. But there's a bit of teaching as well. I teach history, like history of popular music, which is really fun. And I also teach a little bit of songwriting here and there, and just generally kind of oversee the course and the staff. And it's a course that's focused on contemporary music. We do diplomas and bachelors, so that's been a really great to have that. But still, as a day job, I couldn't ask for anything more in many ways, because I'm still involved in music. It might, like any job, it might have elements where you groan a little bit, but overall, it's so great to be involved in music and have an influence in a way that you're not necessarily doing as an artist. You're inspiring and you're helping to nurture, young musicians and help them develop into the kind of, musician you envisage yourself being at some point in time as well, and those idealistic kind of things. It's great.
And we can still see you live around town on occasions with the Chris Pickering Experiment. Tell us who's in that band.
Yeah, so in that band actually James O'Brien is in that band, and he was my friend from the Boat People. So he also lives in Melbourne, and we've been friends for ages. So he's a natural fit to be in that band with me. So it's great to play with him. And then we have Ben Graham is on the drums as well. So we're just a trio, which is great because the stuff we play, we still play my songs, of course, but the stuff we play definitely lends itself more to psychedelic, long form, improvised jams and things like that. The running joke in the band is, how few songs can we possibly fit into a set? Because we ended up, in a 45-minute set, we might play 4 songs because they just end up stretching out. We go on these little, tangents here and there, some of which are pre-planned, some of which are spontaneous, and there's just lots of room to move, and it's fantastic to be in a band like that really is spontaneously creative. It's something I've always loved doing as a musician. Back when I studied jazz, it was a big part of that, but it's also, this is not a jazz band by any stretch. It's a pretty loud, feedback-driven kind of rock band, and but we're able to do these big, long, quite interesting instrumental tangents, taking the songs into new places. So that they're always different. Every time we play them, there's something different going on. So I find that really exciting. You look forward to gigs. You're not like, oh, I know exactly what I'm going to play. We really don't know what's going to happen in many ways. We know the form of the song and we know the chords and we know our parts, but then there's these whole other parts of the songs that just could be anything. So it's really fun. It's really good.
And just before I let you go, you don't sound like someone who harbours many regrets. You sound like you're pretty happy with your lot. But if there is anything you could go back and change, what would it be?
Oh, great question. Yeah, I don't know that
I think the pause says it all.
Nothing. Sorry, that was a bit of dead air right there.
No, that's all right.
I can't think of anything off the top of my head. Oh, there was one thing, but it ultimately didn't affect anything, but it would have made my life easier. I made a bit of a decision at one point to move to Sydney, and I really didn't think it through properly, and so it just ended up being a bit of a waste of 6 months, essentially, because I moved to a place where I only knew a few people. And it was interesting to be a part of that and, meet new people and things. But I just it was probably a little bit too early for me to make that kind of move. This was when I was living in Brisbane. And it just sort of felt like it wasn't really a career setback at all, but it was just a bit annoying. And I looked back at it and was like, oh, you really didn't need to do that. Why did you do that? So, everything happens for a reason, I think. And I definitely learned a good lesson from that, in that, sometimes you've really got to, don't be in a hurry. Don't be in a hurry to go places. Don't be too keen to get somewhere because, then you miss the journey or you might miss other opportunities. So you've got to, there's got to be a mixture I think in any journey, there's got to be a mixture of, motivation and self-motivation, but also ways of just letting things happen. Just, if it's gonna happen, it's gonna happen. If it's not, don't get caught up on it. Yeah.
For sure. Hey, Chris, thanks for your time. It's been a pleasure catching up with you. Look, if there's never another Chris Pickering album, the ones you've left us will stay with us for a long, long time. We'll keep our fingers crossed that maybe one day there will be, though.
There will be for sure. I've got songs. I just need to get around to doing it. So it's when I have the spare time to devote to it, or some millionaire philanthropist Chris Pickering fan comes out of the woodwork and says, "Here, let's record an album," and so we'll just see what happens. It's all good. Yeah.
In the meantime, life goes on.
Yeah, it does. Thanks for having me, John. It's been
Thanks
really
a lot,
great.
Chris. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah.
All the best. Thanks for the songs.
No, you're welcome.
Cheers.